Good afternoon, YouTube. Just listening to some 1930s swing music here. If I'm right, this is Annette Hanshaw, I believe. All the music I play is on my playlists, which is, well, public, so help yourself to anything you like there. Seemed appropriate to do a sort of quick review of Edward G. Robinson, his particular pipe blend. Apparently it was developed in the 1940s by Greenfield and Winter, especially for him, and he gave input in exactly what he wanted to have as, let's say, an American blend, because it's an English blend with a bit of topping. From Sutliff. Now I had to try this because the Artful Codger said that this is a really nice blend, even suggested you could have it at Christmas because there's a little bit of cinnamon in it, which adds up. My builders are right outside my driveway laying stones, so might be the odd noise from there. I think many of you have seen this wonderful tin, the man himself, and actually I've attached one or two things related to his career. YouTube documentary about his life as an actor. And one or two YouTube clips about his work, especially in his high period of success, when he did all those gangster roles. Based on my trust of the Artful Codger, I bought 6 tins of this. From all the descriptions, I was sure I was going to love it. So they come in these tins, which I normally like to buy tins because I can store them and open them as I require, rather than a big tub. And the tub was actually made out of plastic, which is basically porous to air and water vapor, moisture. So you would have to jar it up. Now I found out these tins are cardboard lined with a impregnation, silvery impregnation, but you see the cardboard line there, how it's put together, and I've actually drilled through that, and it's not metal, it's cardboard, and there is a resin layer that's on the inside, so they're probably perfectly good for a year, maybe 2, but very long-term storage you're going to probably lose moisture and maybe even flavour. So most of it I jarred up like that, and the joy is these sticky labels peel off very well, including the one around the tin itself, so you can just use those to label your jars. Marvellous, huh? So I've got a half or a third full tin here, which I've been smoking, and one down in the cellar. Perfect. And actually the tins are quite handy to use as containers. You put cardboard dividers in, you can stack up your topers and things like that. I'm sorry about this row, but there's nothing I can do about it. And they're still going to be here for weeks, so. Well, let's have a look at some roles that Edward G. Robinson has played. No, he wasn't a handsome guy. He wasn't tall and typical debonair Hollywood star. He wasn't a singer and dancer either. What he was an absolutely genial and brilliant actor, especially of character roles. And he showed that throughout his career. Initially, of course, he had often big success with these gangster roles. And actor who's doing a good job can be typecast, and everyone thinks, well, that's what he does, he can't do anything else. But later on, you'll see all kinds of other different roles that he did, more than I can show here, which, I mean, tells you the class and capability of him. Went through a lot of difficult times in the McCarthy period, and other times he was rather under attack in his career and couldn't get roles, but came back beautifully in his 60s, in the 1960s, and acted with, of course, some of the top names at any time that he was acting, be it Bogart or Cagney in those early gangster movies, or be it later on with Paul Newman or Steve McQueen. Let's take a look. So here's Edward G. in Little Caesar as Rico Bandello, and here he is with the young Jimmy Cagney, and here with the great Humphrey Bogart, here with Fred MacMurray and the legendary Burt Lancaster. This great film, The Ten Commandments, with Yul Brynner. One of my favourites here, The Prize, with Paul Newman and Charlton Heston in Soylent Green, a science fiction film. And we all know that he loved his pipe smoking. So we're back, and you see just a few insights of what the great man achieved. So, how about this blend? By the way, I found a good little trick when you're storing it in tins and consuming it from the tin. If I've got a plastic lid like this, again, it's porous and won't keep the moisture that well in, but if you put a aluminium foil disc in the top, it does a better job. It's still not hermetically sealed, of course, but I find it gives it a little bit more longevity if over, let's say, a couple of weeks you're trying to keep the moisture in the tin. You can put a hydration stone in as well, of course, but just thought I'd share that. Got some here in the leather tray. There's actually a nice tin note when you open it up. Very subtle, mild. So what's in it? It's black Cavendish Burley, brown Cavendish and Latakia. Almost nobody seems to be able to smell the Latakia on the tin note, at least, which I have to agree with. You get a slightly sweet, a hint of cinnamon, but it's very, very subtle, but pleasant, The moisture level, it's a little bit moist. Now, it's been quite tricky with this tobacco to hit the right moisture level to smoke, and I think it actually has quite an effect on the enjoyment. Tobacco Reviews gave this 2.5, which is a solid good to very good, but not quite very good. But it was very controversial. There were 15 4-stars, there were 15 1-stars. There were 18 3-stars, there were 13 2-stars. So some people said this bites like a bulldog, it's terrible, and you know, everything from that to nothing special to pretty good to I loved it, you know, it was all over there in those reviews. And I think when you get a blend like that, it's one that is sensitive to being smoked the right way. Now you see my second Meerschaum pipe here, well, the first one I actually bought from Etsy, made in Turkey, just yellowing up nicely as time goes on, 9mm. And I think this Meerschaum is the correct pipe to smoke it in, because I've enjoyed it the most in this pipe. And I'm realizing I should maybe have a few more Meerschaums, because there are just some tobaccos which either get somewhat better and some of them get dramatically better, and I think this is a little bit of a tricky blend to enjoy to the level that you can. So there's a little bit of that sweet nose cinnamon. Some people said they picked up plum, yeah, a little bit of fruitiness. Certainly in the smoke, room note is pleasant, my wife says, and there's a little bit of that sweet touch of fruitiness is in there, but very, very mild. My hygrometer says this is almost perfect to smoke out of the tin. I would suggest yes, or give it 15 minutes or so to dry out, which is what I did this morning in the last 2 or 3 smokes, because I think it smokes better in a Meerschaum, because a Meerschaum breathes moisture a little better than a briar. Maybe an untreated cob would be something that would have that capability. And yes, of course, it depends on the briar pipe and so on. Because those that didn't like it always spoke of the biting, and I think it's the moisture couples with the topping, which there's a spicy element to that topping, and if you're not careful, that with moisture can give you tongue bite. It happened to me once with a briar pipe on a walk I was going. I dried it maybe a couple of hours, so very dry, you could head in that direction, and that what was cinnamon turns into almost like a peppermint kind of attack on your tongue. And I think that's why some, or a good number of smokers, didn't enjoy this blend. At least that's my theory. I'm just sharing my impressions here, of course. So the topping is described as a liquor with a cinnamon touch. Some people said it's more like rum, some say it's like red wine. There's a little bit of port wine in there for me. It's a little bit like that red holiday punch you can drink with a tiny bit of spice and a more kind of a rich red wine. Or for me, it was like a little touch of port wine coming through there in the taste, but just a touch, you know. It's a very subtle blend. So let's talk a bit about the cut. It's basically a ribbon with some chunks of, as you often get, irregular shaped black Cavendish, but yeah, a rough ribbon cut, I would say, with some odd shaped flakes of brown Cavendish in there, and burly forward, no question about it. and very little Latakia. I do occasionally like to listen to the 20s and 30s music, this sort of speakeasy jazz, and especially the evolution of that into the 30s and swing. So taste comments were some people said there's an Asian candy. This is again this spice, but I think that happens when you get it too dry. I can tell you now that at this moisture level, not far from how it came out the tin, just a very short drying, 15 minutes, I don't get any aggressive spiciness that ruins the smoke. If you dry it, I think it goes further in that direction. And then a breathing pipe, whatever it might be, for me it's the best one I have in my collection is a Meerschaum, is a good choice because it will maintain the moisture just about the right level. In here I just have a regular active charcoal filter. There's enough Meerschaum here to deal with the water vapor. Well, other comments to Thai, some said they thought maybe it was a bourbony taste. For me it's a little kiss of port wine, tiny bit, bound up with that fruitiness. Some said it's a toasty walnut, smooth and creamy. Yes, I agree. It's a very agreeable smoke, like many of the Kodja blends are. It's very easy when you've got it right. I just say with this particular one, take care with the moisture and maybe what you're smoking it in, and then it's all brilliant. I'm very much enjoying it. So I don't regret my 6 tins, not at all. And yes, I could smoke this at Christmas time. The nick is low to medium, I'd say. One bowl you don't really feel it, but if you had 2 or 3 you'd feel something. And once it's going, it's usually not maybe just the normal number of relights. As I said, it's very damp here today, so it might take me 1 or 2 more than normal. And bite, I would say, just smoke it with the right moisture level and you won't get any bite. The heat, for example, has contributed to bite. It's just about right here, you know. It's not overly hot. But I think if you over dry it, it'll get too hot, and then those unexpected, unwanted things will happen. Now as to Latakia, very late in the bowl maybe you get a touch of it. Just maybe the last third of the bowl. More a taste of smokiness, you know. And so it's in there, not much, but it's in there. What's it like? Sir Walter Raleigh aromatic maybe, but I find Sir Walter Raleigh aromatic 1 or 2 levels stronger in its taste and flavour, which I always love. A little easier because you can more or less take it out of the tub and smoke it, and you don't risk this spicy tongue bite. It's much more an easy smoke Sir Walter Raleigh Aromatic. This one takes, I think, a little bit of care. And for that reason, Identity is it's an armchair, sit down, you're not walking, you're not got a breeze around you. Maybe having a glass of port wine would fit with it. Sweet liqueur perhaps, because it's not so sweet itself. It's low, there is some sweetness there, but it's not very strong. Maybe with an espresso or something. You know, I think it depends on the blend. You know, some people say, I smoke dry, I smoke everything dry. Others say I'm a wet smoker, you know. I think it just depends on the blend where the optimal point is, you know. My hygrometer goes for 14% moisture content, about 75% relative humidity. That's just a guide. That doesn't mean that's perfect for every blend out there. It's for me a starting point until I know the blend personally, and then I try and use that experience to make sure I'm going to optimize my enjoyment of it. Well, some great reviewers have looked at this blend as well. Sergeant Savinelli, he picked up the rum flavour a couple of years ago. Eric the Blue Collar Piper a year ago. Iron Rails and Pipe Dreams a year ago. D Social D did a review a year ago. Somebody called Pipe Brazil did one 10 years ago. So plenty of reviews out there. Have a look, get other opinions. Most of them liked it a lot, I think. So halfway down the bowl was a lovely richer period where the tastes are a little bit stronger, and you're starting just to get the emergence of a little bit of smoky flavour from the Latakia. So that's really lovely. So the blend fits for me. It's as sophisticated as Edward G. Robinson was as an actor. And you can ask almost any actor of any period, they all rate him right up there. So what score would I give it? Well, Tobacco Reviews, of course, it's an average of the 2.5, and I certainly am in the upper half. And the only thing I dock it for is that you have to try it a good number of times to maybe find the sweet spot of how to smoke it, and a little bit of attention. You know, ideal would be you just can't go wrong, you can't do it wrong, and it tastes brilliant. You know, it's not quite in that position, but I'd certainly give it a 3 out of 4, which is just about in the excellent class. Could be a bit stronger if I'm comparing like to Sir Walter Raleigh Aromatic, which is, you know, you taste those notes of the liqueurs and the chocolate, and you know, you can't miss them. I just love that voice. I think that's one of his successes in his films. Is unmistakable. It's totally distinctive. And what was my favourite film? Although there's a lot of his films I enjoyed seeing again when I was looking into his work, but The Cincinnati Kid. And here's the poster: Steve McQueen, Anne Margaret, Edward G. Robinson, and a closer look at the beautiful and talented Anne Margaret. Wow. For me, it was a superlative film. Young Steve McQueen as the sharp poker player who thinks he's, you know, God's gift, and the old pro who's out there as a legend, and young guys like McQueen think, he's living off his reputation. He's past his best. And there's this lovely jack that hits the table at the end, and McQueen's eye focuses on the eye of the jack because he just had overseen that could be a possibility, which makes the flush. And Edward G. Robinson says, "You're a good kid, but while I'm around, you're just second best." Great film, advise you to watch it. Well, I'll keep it short today. One I always wanted to do, talk about this blend, which is great. Please try some. Just be careful on the moisture, okay? Take care everyone, bye bye.